keep running with this. So what I was reaching for is that I was making some references to George Floyd in this video, in that I had been experiencing a lot in life by the time that we lost George Floyd. I had become I'd referenced that Nicholas Taleb held up in a home in a basement, where with nothing to do, with time on his hands, not safe to go outside, and nothing to do with read books. That's actually that's similar to, that's not exactly the same, but that's similar to besiegement, that is being surrounded, that is being besieged, and that's actually a war crime. That's one of the most daunting, and that's one of the most painful and horrifying things that a human being can experience. According to Judge Joe Brown, who Judge Joe Brown has experienced. He's been a judge, and he's been outspoken against things like crime, and he's actually had, his profession was to deal with people who are real criminals, and to be face to face, or were existing as what's appreciated as criminals. With that, I'm not saying that they're more or less human, but they would have a different appreciation for the rules of engagement, is what would be significant about someone called a criminal. And Judge Joe Brown was on personal terms with them, and actually meting out meting means like dealing things that are very heavy. He was meting out consequences that amount to freedom, and also life and death. I don't know what's more profound, freedom or life or death, but both are very profound. Um, and uh, and you know, and it's not just your real punishment. Actually is a work. You have to work for your punishment. You don't just get handed punishment and experience punishment. You have to work for it. So if you go to jail, to prison, you're working for that. You're working for your safety, just to be healthy and safe, and safety and stable. You're working for that. But also you're working while you're there, and you're actually earning your own punishment. And so if you're handing out stuff like that, uh, on personal terms with people, that's very significant. Near, if you were actually just in doing that, and you understood that as a service, that'd be very brave to assume a role like Judge Joe Brown did as a real judge. Prior to, during, and notwithstanding the fact that he was a TV personality, that's brave. But I think he actually experienced a home invasion one time in his life, that he was able to defend himself and account for himself, because he was an advocate of owning firearms. And I think he actually he may have been lost if he wasn't able to defend himself. So that'd be a horrifying experience. But he also said that, and that's actually an example that's similar to besiegement. But what's significant is that even having experienced that, he thinks that it's sober and mature and responsible for a human being to appreciate and understand what they would not like to experience, and be cognizant of that, and actually forthright about that with themselves and with life, about what they may not want to experience. So for him, even having experienced that, one thing he would not want to experience is drowning. He said that. But one thing that's really a horrible thing to experience would be to be besieged, where you're not safe to walk outside your door, and you potentially have you potentially have dangerous attention on you. That the threat of that, the imminent threat of that, is actually more. It can be as brutal, and also consequential to a person's emotional health. I'm gonna stay away from the word mental health, because that, I think that's actually a euphemism and a coinage by an actual witch hunter in the past, and it was problematic then and now, is mental health. But you can safely say your emotional health would be affected by having active, dangerous, negative attention trained upon you, such that it would actually change your sense of your experience, your ability, your opportunity to experiences that would bring you happiness and health, and your actual goings on, your cadence, your schedule, your life can be thrown out of whack, such that you actually can lose some of your health, and so you actually still experience violence, even though a finger wasn't essentially laid on you. But then, even if so, that is so like there's been different like films about stalking that make stalking sound like funny, like the movie There's Something About Mary. I had always thought that was a romantic movie, but I actually didn't appreciate how problematic that would be, as to suggest that it's okay to stalk people. But stalking is actually one of the most that's one of the most horrifying and awful, detrimental things that a human being can experience, and it's similar to like besiegement, which is a war crime. So you could say that stalking is actually a lesser degree, but also a degree of a war crime, is stalking that is beyond the rules of engagement, that even where violence is employed, where life and death consequences are meted out, certain things go beyond that, and when you combine things like crime and war, and so stalking and so forth is a war crime, and that's what. But Nicholas Nassim Taleb was not a combatant or a participant in fighting, but he still experienced the lack of mobility. But leading up to the time of the George Floyd slaying, I had circumstances in my life that were as severe and frightening as though a person were held up somewhere similar to Nassim Nicholas Taleb, over not a for in a significant way, as a period in my life, not just like an incident, but actual phase in my life. Phases of my life have been like that, and at that time I was laying my hands on a lot of books, including his, so I can actually find solidarity and reciprocity with his experience of being a scholar, a self-styled basement dwelling, apartment dwelling, uh, dwelling scholar in a time of either conflict or the suggestion of conflict that's imminent, even upon a civilian in their living quarters. But I was experiencing that leading up to COVID-19, reading stuff like that he would write, like Skin in the Game and Black Swan, his books like that. Then when George Floyd was slain, I was commuting. I think that was already during the pandemic, so things were already very difficult. But I was commuting to take care of an elderly man who had grandchildren that would tear apart his. If most people walked into his apartment on the same day I did, he gave me the opportunity to leave. He's like, because I had some leeway and some discretion at the agency I was from, so I didn't have to stay working for him. But no one else likely would have done it. And he's like, oh man, you don't gotta go, man. This is messed up, man. This is a hellhole, man. You don't gotta stay here, man. I won't be mad at you, man. You can get out of here, man. The grandkids, you haven't met them yet, but they're gonna come through here, man. Yeah, that's why it looks like this, man. Yep. That place was it could have easily been it could have near about been condemned. It wasn't unsanitary, but it was just not kept up with. And then I actually trained that situation and got it under control and under check, and not too long thereafter. And he's like, dang, man, I didn't know men could clean like that. Man, next time I need something clean, give me a man. Give me a grown ass man to clean something. I like the way men clean. No, forget that. I need a man to clean my stuff. But it didn't last long because his grandchildren were beautiful, but they were active, and they would tear that place. I did meet them the next day and for the next month, and they would, as fast as I would clean that apartment up, they would tear it the hell apart. And you also had it was a lot, but all I meant to say is that I was commuting to see him, and then I hear my family was like always on top of the news at that time. They later got weary of news, but at that time they kept up with news, Johnny on the spot. And they're like, yeah, man, something crazy happened. It actually sounded unreal when I heard about it. Like, yeah, there was an incident. Something happened in Minneapolis, and my mom was like, it was horrible. He was crying for his mom. My mom could appreciate what that would mean to have a son cry for their mom. To hear my mom tell me that I can appreciate that she would be imagining me crying for help like that, and that it actually happened in my own vicinity. My mom was telling me that the day it happened, but it sounded really unreal that whole time. And then when I would go to work, so I was like a forward-facing worker. There would be like people, like the laws of the civil society changed at that moment. So you'd have like cars racing up and down the street. I think you would have like agitators and like counter protesters, and like inside you had all kinds of just crazy weird stuff of different political interests. And like there were some scenes on the news of like skirmishes and episodes between highly trained, damn near military combatants in civilian clothes, just walking up and down our area here for no reason, and coming into conflict with people here who are protesting. But what I meant to say is that under normal circumstance, you wouldn't see a military presence in civil society, and I likely would have not thought that I could experience some of the things that I experienced before that happened, and then during that happened, that I would see my actual my environment turn into a lesser degree of a war zone, similar dynamics as a war zone, or the potential of a war zone where combat or where fighting was imminent, or was potential. But all I meant to say is that you see, so that's a small taste of what the state can level, and other people have experienced way more of that for way longer. But were you to experience even that, that's hella serious. That's a lot. Or something crazy like a nuclear bomb or a gridlock or whatnot. The point is that when that's applied, it's upon righteousness, self-righteousness, entitlement, not unrighteousness. The hardest consequences is righteousness.